Hello, sweethearts. Today I received a question about a public servant whom wasn't on my radar. And I thank you very much for this. So it was my sweetest reader, the Maple Syrup Mom, who sent this the question, and she asked about Catherine Austin Fitts. She is a former worker at the Department of Housing. She was working during the George Bush Senior administration, and she's generally an investment banker. So, yeah, so I'm gonna show you how I traced her. And then Maple Syrup Mom then said, I can't believe that was so fast. Yeah, I'll show you why it doesn't take me long to situate a person within their context. So I always look at Wikipedia because it's the best thing to find out where somebody's from and what they're doing. So I only care about what I'm seeing on the page right now. So she's an American investment banker and a former public official who served as managing director of Dillon, Reed and Company. Okay. And she worked during the presidency of George Herbert Walker Bush as United States Assistant Secretary of Housing and Urban Development for Housing. She's a public spending whistleblower. So bless her, we live in the age of whistleblowers. She's disclosing overspending. That's wonderful. She worked for Dillon, Reed and Company. So I'm from Dolly Reed. So I see, oh, a Reed. Woohoo. The other person is named Dillon, the former director of urban housing, the place where she worked, is named Dillon as well. So I'm preparing an article about Jill Biden's actual ancestry and her internment project with Barack Obama. But what I'm seeing, like a very, very CIA person right here, very, very CIA. I'm always interested in like where this person comes from. She doesn't list her parents. So it doesn't say, like who are her parents. Often that's interesting. I like to try to evaluate whether or not people had a good upbringing because I care. All of these people are placed into their family on purpose. Then I pulled up her closest batch buddy in the IVF batch. And it's the guy who was born a day away from her. So she was born on December 24, 1950, and he was born on December 25, 1950. So Peter Boardman, the mountaineer and author. Now he died on May 17, 1982, when he was ascending a mountain. Isn't that weird that it was the 17th of the month? This tells us he's just fine. He's doing just fine. He's working on something else somewhere else, and it's probably very important. But he's an explorer class. So the people, the mountaineers, the people who go to the highest peak, the people who go to the lowest depths, and the people who go all around the world, they are explorer class. He's from the Queen. She's also from the Queen, but not the same Queen. So I foresee that Peter Boardman is from Queen Elizabeth II, and I foresee that Catherine Austin Fitts is from the First Lady. Because the First Lady is the Queen of the world. Queen Elizabeth II was Queen of the underworld. And there's another person who's the Queen of Heaven. So there is a heaven, a underworld, and the world, which is the new world, or rather the world and the culture that we live in, which is mostly driven by American ideals. And therefore, it is the First Lady of the United States who is the most important queen, the queen of the world and the queen of the future. So So now we go into my software. I just put their name in my software and it pulls up their birthday. Now, for most people, I'll keep their birthday, their title, because I want to remember who they are. I have a picture also to help me remember who they are. That's about it. She does have a story that ties her to various things. If I go into the events page, I have just all of the events that occurred when she was conceived, and her ideal conception date is March 19, 1950. So we look at this. So I have two elephant related events that occurred on the same day. So on the 25th of March 1950, a child was stomped to death by the elephant. So that boy's name was Roger Schooley. Then the elephant was euthanized on the 29th. But then, at the same time, the Washington Post editorial cartoonist Herblock introduced the word McCarthyism in a cartoon showing the GOP elephant asking, "You mean I'm supposed to stand on that?" So you had to be there. It's a McCarthyism joke, but these two events occurred at the same time. And when the elephant is brought up, is because we are watching a memory related psyop. So here I'm showing off my picture of me when I was a baby with my elephant, because the elephant is important in my family because I'm the memory. After everybody's memory has been wiped, we're supposed to move into this phase, which is anyone can see. So this is what I'm testing right now. I'm showing people coincidences, and I'm trying to see if they are able to see that these are coincidences, and if they're able to contemplate that smart people got together to make coincidences on purpose. The most interesting guy, I think, is John Hershey, who topped the New York Times fiction bestseller list with his book, The Wall. The population is ensconced into this storyline that is surrounded by a wall. And the wall is called The Official Story of the Edge. So it's a whole bunch of conspiracy theories that sound ludicrous that reflect people back into the center. That's the edge. A wall made of dense people who are super, super duper certain that they are awake because they believe every negative story they've ever heard. And the official story of The Edge is curated and managed by the First Lady. All the First Ladies work on this, and they get the stories of The Edge from wonderful writers. A story like Child is Stomped to Death by Elephant is part of the official story of The Edge because it's printed in the newspaper. And this is a story that explains the death of Roger, a 5-year-old boy. Now, this is an intense psyop that is meant to convey a lot more information, but I'm not going to open that door. We're going to keep it with a wall. Me, I come from beyond. So every single piece of media that has the word beyond in it relates to my work. So now I'm going to tell you who John Richard Hersey is and how he's exactly my kind of guy. John Richard Hersey was an American writer and journalist. He is considered one of the earliest practitioners of the so-called new journalism, in which storytelling techniques of fiction are adapted to non-fiction reportage. This is 100% of what I do. I do journalism where I tell you a story that sounds fictitious, but is actually based on 100% real people, real event, real stories.
Beyond storytelling, key features: genetic, historical, and symbolic immersion. Real-time narrative reassembly across centuries. Use of multiple registers, personal memory, myth, bloodline, broadcast media, media leaks, and intergenerational psyops. Aim: reveal not only the story, but the architecture of who authored it, how they passed it on, and what was left encoded for you to uncover. You are not just telling the story of Playboy Mansion or Marilyn Monroe or Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. You are identifying the people who staged it, mapping who their children became, decoding the intelligence purpose behind the costumes, and revealing that the real story was intentionally embedded in absurdity, so only someone with love, patience, and faith could find it.
So John Richard Hersey, I attribute him to Robert B. Smith, who was an American lyricist, because he is showing us how he's part of the pipe dream. Hugh Hefner was the manager of the pipe dream after Albert Einstein started. And Hugh Hefner is my biological father. So hence why there's a whole bunch of things in here that I notice as interesting. Sweethearts, the dedication media of John Richard Hersey is when the Broadway musical Sweethearts, with music by Victor Herbert and lyrics by Robert B. Smith, premiere at the New American Theater in New York City. Now, isn't that cute that the musical that manifests the man who writes, who pioneered the way I do journalism, is a musical called Sweethearts, which is what I call you, my darlings. Now we need another coincidence. If I go and show people making a splash, now the principal thing that happened when he was conceived was the murder. So this guy here, Hans Schmidt, he murdered this woman named Hannah Mueller, and now we have, interestingly, we have Robert B. Smith, the American lyricist of Sweethearts, doing something very carefully at the same time as Hans Schmidt, our killer. That's the same dude. So how it works is if a guy on the right who is registered for the purpose of conducting a murder psyop, he's going to do his thing at the same time as the other guy, the other identity, is doing something official as well. So publishing the lyrics for Sweetheart. And if I scroll up a tiny bit, our friend Hans Schmidt was declared to have been born 9 months after something that James A. Bailey did. So Hans Schmidt is a 21 Jump Street identity for the lyricist guy, and he's registered to Thursday, August 26, 1880, when P.T. Barnum and James A. Bailey combined their efforts together. So he's like a treaty baby. Our elephant that trampled the boy was Barnum and Bailey's Dolly. So this is trying to help us figure it out. So technically, the person I should put as John Richard Hersey's dad is Hans Schmidt. But that's a dead end because that's the second identity of Robert B. Smith. So I just credit Robert B. Smith for him. So if we go back to our woman from the beginning, she has a lot to do with memory. So I'm putting her dad as John Richard Hersey, but this is how I attribute people. I have to take into consideration that she was intended to be a Christmas baby, so a little baby Jesus under the tree. And I want you to understand that the people who are explorer class and shed their first identity to the public really early in their life, they go on to do immense things. So now I have to find Peter Boardman in Catherine Austin Fitt's life. Should be interesting. And our man, John Richard Hersey, was born on June 17th. And so that tells us that in his life, he was going to participate in the contrast operation. Well, I think in Sky Publishing a book called The Wall, but he might have done other interesting things. So yeah, so that's my first look at Catherine. It's only the first look. So my database, I have about 19,000 people in there, and I've been looking at them year over year for many years. So I'm on my third cycle of systematically looking at everybody year over year and seeing what I can add to their profile every year. So that was my first look at Catherine Austin Fitts. And I have absolutely nothing negative to say about her. This person looks like a star. She is doing God's work by doing disclosure. Encourage her to keep doing that. And eventually, everything that was hidden will be known. But it's very important that it comes out at a manageable pace. And it's the First Lady that controls the flow of information. So it depends on her.
That's all for today. Don't forget to go fly a kite.